Sarita was in complete shock, while after staring at her bitten wrist, not even noticed that she was still trapped in the horde of walkers. She turned towards her savior, Lee, but even though he may have killed the walker, that still would not stop her from reanimating. Ah, I'm bit, Lee. I'm bit. Oh God. Oh Jesus. I'm gonna die. You're not going to die. I can help it, Lee disagreed, having faith that there could be still a chance to save her. But what a fool he was to think. Come on, we gotta move. Nearby, the remaining group, with the exception of Jane, was nowhere to be seen. Ran towards Lee and the herd of walkers, killing a couple on the way. Carly and Mike stood only a couple feet away from Lee. Their expressions were shocked, seeing Sarita's bite. Lee, are you alright? Carly inquired, before she was almost knocked down by a nearby walker. But she was swift to evade it, and stabbed it in the brain with the blade knife. Oh my God! Mike gasped, eyeing Sarita's bite mark on her wrist. Sarita, she's been bit. We don't have time to worry about that right now, Lee replied, quickly grabbing Sarita's arm as tight as the grip would go. We gotta move. Come on, everyone stay close to me. Carly had a quick check just to make sure everyone was here and not accounted for, but a couple of them were missing. Luke, Jane, Rebecca were nowhere to be seen. She grabbed Clementine's hand and ran through the horde of walkers. Clementine, stay close to me. As the duo continued running, a couple of walkers blocked their way, separating Carly and Clementine from each other. Clementine was able to keep up with Lee, but she could not go back and help Carly without getting herself killed. Carly panicked as she raised her blade and stabbed a couple more walkers approaching her. She had no idea how she was going to get out of this in one piece. However, she noted that her walker blood across her body still had an effect on the walkers, who mistaken her for one of them. So she quickly turned around and approached a walker, almost got her, but something killed it from behind, and the walker dropped to the ground. She felt so relieved to see a familiar face and realized she was not on her own. Luke? Carly, Sarah ran off in the herd all of her own, Luke said, while he decapitated a couple more walkers with a machete. I'm going after you. Coming? What about the others? Carly reminded, looking in every direction for any sign of Lee, Clementine, and the rest of her friends. But unfortunately, there was no sign of them. We can't leave them. We won't. We're going to find Sarah, and we'll meet up with them at the Parker's Run, Luke said, keeping his eyes focused on the direction Sarah had ran off to. His expression was determined to find her. Let's go. Carly hesitated for a couple of seconds, but she would rather be with someone alone than out there. She knew for a fact that Lee would not leave Parker's Run until everyone was sitting now and safe and accounted for. She followed Luke for the middle of a horde of walkers, killing a couple on the way. Not too far from Carly and Luke from where we ran off, Lee and Clementine had been separated from Mike, Bonnie, and Sarita. But unfortunately for them, the walkers were not aware of them. They were human as they merely walked past them. Lee kept Clementine close, while he held a hatchet in his free hand, prepared to fight and protect Clementine with his life. If things were to go wrong, but at least they would both walked and made no sound, they would be fine. Stay close to me, Clem, she whispered in a very quiet tone. Don't make a sound. Got it, Lee whispered in a tone of return. Let's just get... Clementine was cut off when she suddenly was grabbed and pulled away from Lee. She was about to scream, but whoever grabbed her covered her mouth to prevent her from screaming. Lee panicked when Clem was out of his grips, and within a quick of a flash, he remained silent and lifted his hatchet in the air, prepared to kill whoever grabbed her, already suspecting a walker had done it. Fortunately, he stopped in the nick of time when he saw a familiar face. Rebecca? Shh, it's just me, Rebecca assured, as she released her arms and around the young girl and ducked down behind a boulder. She still had her body covered in walker guts, meaning she could still blend in with the horror as long as she kept silent. Thank God I found you guys. Where are the others? We got separated, Lee answered. Kneeling down towards the duo, he made it certain that the walkers were not taking any notice of them. We can't find anyone. What are we going to do? Rebecca asked in a worried tone, giving up on hope that getting herself and her unborn child out of there in one place. She still kept quiet. I was with Luke, but we got separated. I don't think I could do it, you guys. We can get out of this, Lee assured, hoping to keep her calm to avoid being exposed by any walkers. Look, all of us are still covered in walker guts, and the walkers are still being drawn towards the store. We can make it as if... Lee was in cut off the sentence when Rebecca felt pain in her stomach, causing her to groan in pain, but she kept as quiet as possible. She prayed that the pain would not last long while she's trapped in the horde. Rebecca, are you all right? Clementine inquired, allowing Rebecca to hold her hand while she groaned in agonizing pain. Are you going to be able to keep moving? Not like we have much of a choice, Rebecca replied, knowing that there was no going back once they were out. I'm glad you're both here. We can all watch each other's backs. All right, but first we need to do is find a way out, Lee suggested. Turning it shifted its attention towards the nearby woods. He noticed a small opening where the walkers were thinning out, giving them a perfect opportunity to escape, if they were quick enough. There, by the trees. Everyone, stay behind me, and I'll lead the way. Being as silent as they could, Lee, Clementine, and Rebecca got up and slowly walked through the herd of the area towards the area was thinning out. Hopefully once they were out of the horde, they could reunite with everyone else. As they were walking, Clementine had panicked a little when she could have sworn a walker had detected her, and turned around, preparing to run away if she saw yet another familiar face she bumped into. Jane? Lee shifted his attention towards the trio was standing completely still. He had a change of direction and slowly approached him. Jane, where have you been? Stop, relax, or you'll be spotted, Jane warned, her face showing no emotion like usually. She slowly walked through the horde, whispering obvious advice. Just slowly walk, and you'll be fine as long as you keep quiet and just walk. I don't know if I can do this, Rebecca admitted, beginning to cry in fear as she followed Jane and Clementine and Lee. We need your help, please. Jane stopped for a moment for once, acting like she actually cared. She merely gave him more advice than rather help them physically. It's a bad idea for us to stick together. It's better if we all just spread out. It's a bad idea if we all split up, Rebecca replied, placing her hands upon her pregnant stomach. Please, Jane. You'll be fine as long as you listen to what I say, Jane reassured, as if folding her arms together and surveying the area for a way out. Jane, we need to stick together, Lee suggested, unable to risk losing more of their friends. We lost too many as it is. Jane sighed as she focused her attention back towards Rebecca, who was beginning to cry even more. As much as she wanted to leave after being here for so long, she knew leaving there would not be right. All right, Lee, give me a hand. Clem, stay here with Rebecca. Don't make a sound, Lee instructed, his tone yet serious. He stood in silence while Jane explained her plan to get them out of there in one piece. We need to push back through that horde of walkers. We need a cowcatcher to move on, Jane explained, surveying the walker, looking for a walker that was easy enough to move through. What now? Cowcatcher. One we can use to move through them, Jane answered, finally picking out the walker that looked light enough for them to use. That one looks good enough, Lee. I'm going to move into the far side of it. You get its attention, trust me. Lee nodded in agreement through his head. He had no idea what she was going to do, but for the sake of himself, Clementine, and Rebecca, it had to be done. She stood a couple of feet away from the walker and called out loud enough the tone to hear it without alerting the rest. Hey! The walker was distracted to his voice, slowly turned around and limping towards him for a tasty meal. As he moved closer to the next victim, Jane had popped out of nowhere all of a sudden, sliced the walker's mouth with her knife, preventing it from biting anyway. I'd like to see you bite anyone, no? Jane spoke it to it as she placed her hands upon its back and pushed it for a horde of walkers. All right, follow me. Stay close. If you fall behind, there's nothing I can do. We understand, Lee whispered, volunteering himself to be the last one in line to keep an eye on Clementine and Rebecca, just to make sure they don't fall behind. He clutched his weapon tightly upon his hand, preparing for the worst. A couple of walkers did look at them, just for a couple seconds, but mainly focused their attention on the gunfire from Howe's hardware store. After a couple of terrifying moments walking through the horde of walkers, hearing nothing but groans and gunfire, was it expecting to cover, be blown by any second now. The four of them made it out of the horde and into the woods. Jane finished off the walker that she used to get by kicking it to the ground and stabbing it in the back of its head and proceeded towards the woods. All right, follow me. Let's get out of here. Lee then nodded and walked with Jane through the woods, keeping his arms around Clementine and Rebecca. He felt super relieved to make it out of there, but nevertheless, he was worried that everyone may have not leave and made it out. But he had no idea where Carly, Luke, Mike, Bonnie, Sarita, and Sarah were. But he prayed that everyone made out of there, especially Carly. Morning had arrived in the woods of California, Tennessee, and the four friends, Clementine, Lee, Jane, and Rebecca, had been walking almost all night. But they did not stop when most of the walker guts came off of their clothing. They were now heading towards Parker's Run, with Jane leading the way. Clementine and Rebecca walked close behind Lee, with Sid walking beside Jane. While they were walking through the woods, Clementine then turned her attention towards Rebecca to look and took that she wasn't looking that well. She held her stomach with one hand and was struggling to walk a little. "Rebecca, I know it hurts, but we need to keep moving. We're almost there." "I hope so," Rebecca admitted. "It's just so cold. It's so freezing out there. I really wish I could stop and take a break, but I want it all out of there as soon as possible. I need to know if everyone made it. Luke, Sarita, Sarah, Bonnie, Mike, and Carly. We already lost Nick, Pete, Carlos, Lily, and Alvin. I just really hope they're all there." Clementine remained silent as she lowered her head, her expression saying somewhat guilty. She understood how much Rebecca was upset over the loss of her husband's death. If Clementine had not ordered Lily to fire, then maybe, just maybe, she could have saved them. Carver took cover behind the wooden support beams with his python holstered, calling out to Lily as he prepared to fire just in case. "That's our man, and now, I did not want to have to do this, but you're leaving not much of a choice. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to march every one of your friends out here, and I'm going to put a bullet in the back of their head, or you can give up now. Your choice." The only response Carver got was another shot from Lily that hit in the wooden support beam he was taking cover from behind. "Bastard," Lily growled, cocking her rifle back and firing another shot to hit the support beam again. Carver merely flinched in response as he made his way over to the prisoners, preparing to take one more of them in hostage, attempt to coax them out from hiding. Clementine realized that she was not going to be able to get another shot from this position, and just spotted another covering position they could use. "Lily, over there!" The two ran over there to where Clementine was pointing, and bumped into a small circle that was surrounded by a metal fence for cover. "Hi, Alvin," Carver greeted, forcing Alvin to stand onto his feet as he marched him over towards the window. "Bill, no!" Rebecca begged, attempting from using her husband as hostage, but was held back by Troy. "Tell her to stop! Lily, stop!" "Alvin!" Clementine gasped, seeing that Carver forced Alvin over towards the window where Johnny had been shot, unaware that Lily had changed her sniper position. "Damn it, it's a tough shot," Lily admitted, trying her best to get a good aim without hitting Alvin. She asked Clementine for an advice, since she was quite smart in situations like this. "What do you think, Clementine?" "I think I got a good shot." "Shoot!" Clementine ordered, suspecting that it may be their only hope to save everyone, especially Lee. Lily closed her eye and fired a single shot. As luck would have happened, she managed to hit Carver. He collapsed onto the ground. There was silence for a moment as the prisoners merely watched, while Bonnie and Troy watched in shock of their leader's possible death. All of a sudden, Carver's eyes had widened as he stood back up, holding his free hand against his right hand where Lily had managed to hit him. Lily panicked when she saw him stand back up and attempt to finish her off, but her gun did not fire. She quickly tried to reload before Carver took else hostage that may cost her dearly. Carver clutched onto his shoulder without hesitation, fired his python, hitting Alvin directly in his forehead. His expression did not show any remorse for killing him. Instead, he marched back over towards the prisoners to continue his work. "No, Alvin!" Rebecca gasped and screamed, crying out heavily as she fell to her knees. "Alvin!" Carlos gasped, unable to imagine how Rebecca was feeling right now. "Rebecca, don't look. Just don't look, Rebecca." "Oh my God. Oh my God." Clementine dazed out from her thoughts when Jane spoke up. "If they're not there, then there's really nothing we can do about it," she admitted. "Don't say stuff like that." Rebecca snapped angrily at Jane. That would say something selfish like that. All right, I'm sorry, Jane apologized, but her tone did not seem like she meant it. Why would you say that? Lee inquired, speaking in a normal tone, unlike Rebecca. If they're not there, we should look for them. It's a big world out there, Jane reminded, keeping her eyes locked into the direction they were heading. The chances of finding someone are slim. Besides, it's not safe anywhere these days. Rebecca listened to their conversation, and when the word hearing being safe, she turned around for at least to check any walkers that might be following them, realizing that they were safe. Are we safe for now? We don't know if we're being followed or not, and it's been quiet, for now at least. We're fine, Jane assured, although there was a possibility of her seeing just as Rebecca stopped from speaking. We just need to keep going anyway, Rebecca replied, trying her best to pick up the pace and kept up the speed level as everyone else did. But her pregnancy made that hard. It must have been at least an hour since we saw any walkers, Clementine admitted, slowly down a little so she could be walking at the same pace as Rebecca. Clementine's right, Lee agreed, with his adopted daughter, knowing she was right as of now. I think they're all still busy with Carver's people. Let's try and stay here. Let's hope our luck lasts, Rebecca hoped, placing both of her hands upon her stomach as she felt the baby kick a little. She prayed that she would find somewhere safe before she went into labor. Guys, I'm grateful we escaped, but I can't help but worry for the others. Do you think they made it out here? I think it's stupid the way we escaped. Why? It worked, didn't it? Jane reminded, her being the only one that made it through the horde without being noticed since she had much experience. I know we all agreed, but it was pretty a stupid move, Rebecca admitted. A lot of things went wrong. Do you think we should have just been a bit more patient? Made a better plan? It worked. That's all that matters, Jane assured. Worked? Rebecca gasped. Carlos is dead, and the other ones are nowhere to be seen. Sarita was bit, Lee added, causing a bit of slight look to both Clementine and Rebecca, who were unaware of what happened to her. She was what? Rebecca asked in shock. She got bit by a walker, Lee answered the obvious, keeping his head lowered slightly as he felt somewhat responsible. If he was quicker, then he would have been able to save her. There was nothing else she could do but run. Maybe if we tried something else, maybe Sarita might have avoided being bit. Guys, I know some of your people didn't make it, Jane admitted, seeing herself feeling a little sad over the death of her friends. She did not like walking amongst walkers, despite the fact that she did it all the time. But don't forget that Carver was a psychopath. If we stayed there, things would have only got worse than it already is. And if a couple of you didn't panic, things might have turned out better than they would have been. Of course we panicked, Rebecca stated the obvious. We were scared. It's easy walking through a bunch of monsters. Well, there's nothing we could have done to prevent it. Clementine jumped in the conversation, defending Rebecca with her statement. Carlos got shot. He couldn't exactly ignore it. Sarah was obvious going to be devastated. Look, it was a good plan, but it wasn't the actual way of going along with it. That's when things got bad, Jane explained, attempting to defend herself from her judgment. Are you trying to say it was their fault? Rebecca inquired. No, that's not what I'm saying, Jane assured, closing her eyes for a moment, Wizard trying to find the right words. It's just that... Jane was cut off mid-sentence when Rebecca groaned in agonizing pain, clutching her stomach hard. Ugh! She groaned, immediately freezing her tracks. I need to stop. Everyone stopped and turned around, facing towards Rebecca. Lee stood the closest, preparing to catch her if she fell. Each of them knew that the baby was coming soon, and there was no way they could prevent that. All they could just do is hope they would find somewhere safe to deliver it. Sorry, guys, I really don't want to slow us down, Rebecca admitted. She could not do anything about it now. Guys, can I have a minute, please? Sure, take a minute or so, Rebecca, Lee granted. Thank you, she thanked. She began to soon cry to herself quietly, turning away from the others. Rebecca could almost give anything to give her husband back to her. I wish Alvin was here. He should be here for this. That goddamn madman Carver killed him. Clementine shifted her attention towards her guardian and Jane for advice. Lee, Jane, do you know anything about babies? Just children around your age when I first met you, not babies, Lee answered, unsure of how to take care of the baby, especially in this age and day. Getting the right supplies was almost impossible. Nope, me neither, Jane replied in an unfortunate tone. She then focused her attention towards Rebecca's stomach and asked a rather awkward question. What are you going to do with it? And what is that supposed to mean? Rebecca inquired, angered that Jane would such ask a question like that. She was going to take care and raise her child, obviously. Nothing. Sorry. Jane apologized, nervously rubbing her hand at the back of her neck. I was just trying to make a conversation, you know. Rebecca did not buy it for a moment. She immediately repeated her question. No, I want to know what you mean by that. Do with what? My baby? Rebecca, calm down, Lee soothed, knowing stress was not good for a pregnant woman, especially close to giving birth. Look, I was just looking at the worst-case scenario, Jane answered. You may have Lee and Clementine with you, but raising a baby out here is going to be hard. It's going to need lots of feed, warmth, and other stuff. Your point? Rebecca inquired, pretending to be prepared for everything Jane had just told her. It's going to be helpless and you can't protect it, Jane said. And you think I won't be capable enough, don't you? Rebecca now understood what she meant by this, and this she made was angrier than before. Just because you're some angry woman who doesn't give a fuck about herself, you think you know everything? Hey, I used to have people, you know, Jane replied, raising her tone in an angered tone that was the first of any of them had seen. I had a sister and she died, let me guess. She died, boo-hoo, Rebecca shouted, and that was going a little far. Don't act like you're the only one who's lost something. Jane was in complete shock to what she had just told her. Her expression looked like she was going to cry, but instead she turned around and folded her arms. You don't understand. Her sounded like she was going to cry. Rebecca realized that she went only too far, and her expression softened from anger to apologetic tone. Jane, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Honest. Look, guys, I see what you're both saying, Lee admitted, half agreeing with the two of them, was if folding his arms together near his chest. Rebecca, I'm not going to lie. Raising a child in this world is going to be tough. But it is possible. Jane, I can see what you're saying, but like it or not, this baby's coming, and the best thing we could do now is to get to Parker's Run, find the others, and find somewhere safe. Clementine was impressed by Lee's wisdom, that even though it made her smile slightly. She knew how great Lee was at solving problems, proven on how he sorted out the problems in the past, especially when it came to Kenny and Lily's arguments almost every day. Rebecca and Jane both listened to every word that he had just told them and realized they were right. It was going to be hard, yet possible. But they were going to need supplies, shelter, and more things. Without saying anything, Jane began to resume her walk towards the direction they were heading in. The other three followed a couple of seconds afterwards. Four of the friends remained silent for the rest of their journeys and towards Parker's Run. Hopefully they can make a plan once they reunited with the others. That's if everyone made it there, of course.